Right. I hope this is broadcasting. I'm actually using some new software temporarily. So if you guys give me a moment, we'll get started the right way and then we'll get started. Okay. So just give me a moment here. And I'm trying to see if, in fact, this thing has me broadcasting because I have no way of telling right now, unfortunately. Just give me just a moment here. And let me check and see if this thing has me going live. And yeah, it looks like I am. So, all right. So now that we got that figured out, I hope I got this part right too. So just give me a moment here, and let's put some music on. We're gonna give people time to get on this broadcast. Thank you so much, and thank you for your patience. I do apologize. It was just with this software that I'm using for now, it's this got so many moving parts to it, and it's just not something you can just pick up and just and just go with it. So that's what I was figuring out anyway. But in the meantime, let me roll this music here. If you haven't been checking out our music collection that we have over on sambatree.com, make sure you check it out. I'll put it up on the screen momentarily for you. And I'm telling you, we're throwing down, and there are albums that we're putting out now, and it's all to cultivate an environment of peace in your home. So I'm getting ready I'm going to play for you first. This is a sneak peek of a song that I wrote. And it's part of our winter album that we're going to be coming out here soon. Okay, so let me play this and then I'll bring it up on the screen here momentarily. Okay. Oh, let me start it off from the beginning. Let me see. Let's see. Is that the right one? Nope, that's not it. Hold on. Nope, that's not it. Hold on, let's start from the beginning. There it is. There it is.
Back in 79, I remember that time, flipping through those pages, dreams in my mind. G.I. Joe riding high in that green army Jeep, yeah. My tail football glowing, I could play in my sleep. Oh, mama saw me circling, she just laughed inside. Said, boy, you better hope that Santa's pockets are wide. And I smile, yeah, I smile, 'cause deep down I knew we'd make it through somehow. Hey, didn't get that moped, didn't get that game, but I got love and I carry that name. And you can find it in a catalog. No, you can't. Wishing I could hold him just one more year. My daddy came home tired, still tucked me in. Yeah, mama kept the faith when the lights went dim. Oh, those weren't gifts, they were miracles in disguise. Yeah. A love that lasts forever, you see it in my eyes. Yeah. Now my babies show me what they want this time, but I know what matters, what money can't buy. Oh yeah, you can't find it in a catalog. No, you can't buy love with a price tag on. Those hugs, those laughs, the lessons they taught.
All right. Hopefully you guys heard that. Like I said, I'm having a hard time trying to figure out if this if everything's working fine. But yeah, that name of that one is called You Can't Find That in the Catalog. And that goes back to the days of those of us of a certain age. Hold on for a second. Those of us of a certain age, we remember the era where, you know, we would get that Sears catalog or that JCPenney catalog, and we'll be out there circling what we want, you know, kind of giving a hint, clue to mom and dad to let them know what we wanted and all that stuff. And yeah, it's so, you know, just listen to the lyrics on that. And this next album, yeah, it's going to have a lot of songs like that on there. And, you know, just thinking about this time of the year and all of that stuff. So be on the lookout for that. We're still rolling, but like I said, in the meantime, let me tell you about this first. Nicole wanted me to show an image on the screen, and there's just too many buttons in front of me right now. So I'm just going to tell you, okay, what we're doing. So here at Samba Tree, again, we just got off of, we're still doing the 30% up to 30% off promo. That is still going on right now. You can still check that out. Save up to 30% off of things, most of the things in the store right now. We just finished a special promo over on our, our multi, vitamins, 8 vitamins and minerals. 8 herb vitamins and minerals tea. And, you know, that was up to 40% off. So we just finished that yesterday. But the 30%, I want to be clear, that is still going on right now. Well, every day this week, when we sent this out in the email yesterday, you're going to be getting an email from us. So it's going to be you're going to be getting some email traffic from us this week, okay? You're going to be getting some email traffic from Samba Tree this week. And we said every day this week, we're going to do just like we did with the multi, and we're going to focus on a particular item in the store where we will give you jacked up savings. Okay, so for this today, 24 hours, is it 24 hours? Let's see. Yeah, 24 hours, we are doing 40% off of what you see on the screen here. All right, so these are seasonings that are in-house. We develop these things because we got sick and tired of getting, falling for the old okie doke where we go into the grocery store and you see these seasonings and they put the black man's face on it and you're like, yeah, okay, that's ours. That's our joint. We're going to get that, right? And we get that thing and then end up, you look at the ingredients and they got all kinds of junk on it. Well, we said again, what we're doing, we're coming up with our own stuff. We're coming up with our own stuff. Whoever's trying to come in, you can come in because you're not going to be seen on camera. So we're going to come up with our own stuff. We're not going to sit here and complain about it, but we're going to come up with our own seasonings. We're going to build our own solutions, even when it comes to something as simple as seasoning. And so that's what we did here. So, but not all of these things. I mean, salt, we ain't come up with that one. Okay. But I will tell you what's 40% off everything you see on the screen. We have a bladderwrack seasoning. That one's actually 18% off. Okay. So the bladderwrack seasoning, that's 18% off. Click on the items when you go in the store and it'll give you the details of what's everything in that bladderwrack seasoning. Everything else is 40% off. The black lava salt, the red Aliyah salt, 40% off. 50/50 pepper, that's 40% off. And then the hickory smoked sea salt, that's also 40% off. Okay, so you get that, and you could also get it bulk too. So there you go. So I just wanted to let you know about that. Yes, ma'am?
Only salt and pepper, not bladderwrack.
Yeah, I already read through all of this.
Okay.
Yeah, I read through all this. Okay, so there you go. There you go. So I just gave you everything. If you're on the email list, you'll see that on there. But like I said, again, I have to stress to you, the up to 30% off promo is still going on. That's still going on right now. But on these items, you're getting up to 40%. Okay. So just wanted to let you know about that. All right. So give me some time here while I'm kind of shifting here because like I said, I just wanted to get that out of the way first. And, thank y'all for your patience on this because I literally do not like this program. I've tried to use it before, but it's for this reason. It's just, like I said, it's just too much going on. But anyway, here we go. But anyway, so glad that you guys can join us. And again, thank you so much for your patience. Really appreciate it. This multi, I'm getting it all in, y'all, but this thing is the bomb. This thing is a game changer. Let me hold on for a second. The amount of herbs that's in there, you can put frozen fruit in there as well. But when I tell you that thing tastes like fruit punch, I'm not lying. Check it out, the multi. I got it right here. So you'll see me drinking that during the broadcast. Okay, so now let's get into the meat of what we're going to be talking about today. And yeah, as you can see, we finally officially moved everything about a day ago. So, you know, my hair, you see my hair is, I haven't shaved, nothing. I'm moving, y'all. But anyway, so today's broadcast, we are going to talk about something that I know is going to be something that is going to be, for some people, is going to be a bit of an eye opener, but not really, because we've actually been talking about this for some time. But I still believe that there are people who aren't exactly getting it, and they're not getting the impact of this information. So we're going to take it slow. And what we're going to do is we're going to go back, and I'm going to step you through everything. Okay? This is what we're going to do. We're going to step through everything, and we're going to bring it all the way up to today. So if you are an individual that's like, get to the point, I don't have time, then you don't have time for this video. And that's okay. Okay, that's okay. If you don't want to spend the time, that's fine. But for the rest of us, we're students, and we're going to take our time, and we're going to go through this. I promise you, I'm sticking to the point. I'm not going to be deviating at all. I had to get that first stuff out of the way. I explained that we had that technical stuff going on, but we're here now. Okay. So deep breath, did that. And so now we're going to jump in, and we're going to talk about this. Okay. Now, there has been, as you can see on the thumbnail, you know, for the longest time, there was this, this stereotype, you know, that compared black people to apes or to monkeys, right? And this is something that has been around as long as all of us can remember, right? And, you know, when something has been around for that long, we just kind of assume that it's just what it is. I mean, this is just, you know, a lot of times we don't really think about the origins of these things, right? But my goal here is to get you to stop things for a second and begin to start thinking, whoa, wait a minute, where did this come from? And as you begin to start thinking like that, you're going to begin to start finding all types of, and I'm going to say treasures. And when I say treasures, some of those treasures aren't necessarily good, but ultimately I would say truth in of itself is a treasure. Regardless if it's something that's positive or negative, it's still a treasure. And that's what we're about here. We want people to know that you are equipped to find these treasures, these things we call truth. And so what we're going to be talking about at the end of it, you're going to be challenged, because you're going to see just how deep this whole stereotype and what it did particularly to black folks, and how unfortunately it got into the psyche of black folks to such a degree that we embodied it, and we took it and we ran with it. All right. So today you're going to get the truth. All right. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. Let me see if I can pull up this window here. This is something, again, that I have read to you over and over again. And this is from the Jewish rabbi by the name of Maimonides. Okay. And this is someone that we cannot, as a black individual, and when I say black, I mean, I would say especially if you are a black American, this needs to be something that you almost carry with you. You know, when I say carry with you, even though it's something that's very damning, it's something that you know, when I'm discovering things and I find out, oh my gosh, this, you know, this is amazing in that, wow, this thing has been like in plain sight for all these years. I don't want to lose this thing. That's what I'm talking about. I don't mean like memorize it, keep it in your heart, that kind of thing. But I mean, this is something that every black individual, starting with black Americans and then going on with all other black folks, but it's specifically black Americans, you need to have this well within in the forefront of your mind. So give me a moment. Let me pull this up here on the screen. That would be that right there. I don't know why this is like putting me like that. Okay. Ooh, I hate this thing, y'all. Just for the record, I can't stand this thing. Okay. All right. So this is Maimonides. We're going to read this together. Okay. So you can see. And this is something that is in the Talmud. All right. And we're going to start from here. And then we're going to go all the way. Now we're going back to the 12th century. The 12th century. This was when this was written. And I'm going to read it to you one more time. All right. But we're going to take it even slower this time. All right. So let's go. Maimonides, this is what he said. Among these, who have no religion, there is a group of people whose entire inner thought is given to the immediate satisfaction of their material wants and appetites, and they do not long for anything else. To them, men become like the dumb animals, or even lower, since the animals at least do not eat to the point of bursting, and they do not mate with every woman they see. I have already mentioned in the first part of this treatise that the inhabitants of the South have lustful and bestial natures. They have bodies which are hotter than the bodies of other people because they are closer to the sun, whose rays reach them when it is near the zenith. This is the opinion of the physicians. And the inhabitants of the north are the people with weak and cold natures. Those bodies are cold and their humors thick. The inhabitants of the south are the Negroes, and they have lustful and bestial natures, and their bodies are hotter than the bodies of all other people. To my mind, they do not have the rank of men, but have among the beings a rank lower than the rank of man, but higher than the rank of the apes. For they have the external shape and lineaments of a man and a faculty of discernment that is superior to that of the apes. So this was written by one of the most, I would say, the most esteemed rabbi of Judaism. And again, like I said, his name is Maimonides. You can look this up. All right. And this is in Guide of the Perplexed, Book 3, Chapter 51. But in this, what we just read is this. It's almost as if it's a prophecy, if you will, on a specific group of people. They're not talking about Africans in the northern part of Africa. No, he's talking specifically about Negroes. He said in the south part, the inhabitants of the south. Then he goes even further and says he addresses them as Negroes. Okay, so he's talking about a very specific group of people. And as you and I know, the Negroes were the people who ended up where? In slavery. All right. And of course, yes, again, we know you had the transatlantic slave trade, but you also had the Arab slave trade as well. We get that. OK, but the bulk of the people that ended up in that slave trade were people that fell within that range, within this area that he's talking about. So he's addressing Negroes. And he said out of his pen or quill or whatever he used, that these individuals, he's describing them as being people that are basically oversexed. That's what he says. Because he's saying, he's making a distinction. Because let's go back again. Let's read it again, because I want to make sure you get this. This thing is going to be like an onion today. It's going to be, we're going to just be peeling one layer after another. So I want to make sure you get this. Among those who have no religion, there's a group of people whose entire inner thought is given to the immediate satisfaction of their material wants and appetites, and they do not long for anything else. To them, men become like the dumb animals, or even lower, since the animals at least do not eat the point of bursting, and they do not mate with every woman they see. All right, so let's stop there. So he's making a distinction here that he's talking about there's one group of people. All right. Now he's not saying it, but what he's saying, he's talking about the people he's describing here aren't the people in the South. He's saying, no, they're not like that. They are not like dumb animals. They are not, what you call it? They do not, let's see, to them, men become like dumb animals, or even lower, since the animals at least do not eat the point of bursting, and they do not mate with every woman they see. Okay, so he's making some type of distinction here. But then you skip down, he goes like here. I have already mentioned in this first part of the treatise that the inhabitants of the South have lustful and bestial natures. They have bodies which are hotter than the bodies of those of other people, because they are closer to the sun, so forth and so on. But I want to skip back here, because you're going to see all of this play out in what we're going to be talking about. Because he said, I discussed this. Where is it? I've already mentioned in the first part of this treatise. Sorry, go back. Oh, here it is. They have the bodies which are hotter than the bodies of all of the other people, because they are closer to the sun, whose rays reach them when it is near the zenith. This is the opinion of the physicians. This is the opinion of the physicians. Okay? And then it goes on from what we read there, and how they describe this group of people that they referred to, that he referred to as the Negroes. Let me close one of these windows out here. Okay, there you go. Okay, so there you go. Now, this individual here, I told you this was back in the 12th century. But, it just takes a second to look this up. This individual, yes, he was a rabbi, right? He was a rabbi. But he wasn't just Jewish. He was a Sephardic Jew. Now, I'm going to pause there for a second, because I want to make sure you heard what I just said. This man who wrote this was a Sephardic Jew. This was back in the 12th century. Now, how many Hebrew Israelites, how many Hebrew researchers, how many Hebrew documentarians, or however you say it, how many Hebrew teachers, how many fake PhD Hebrews have you listened to in the past few years that have boasted in their belief that they are the descendants of the Sephardic Jews? Because in their minds, they say the Sephardic Jews were black people. Now, we have done extensive videos telling you that, yes, you're going to find some Sephardics that were intermingled, they intermarried or whatever with Africans. You're going to find it. But their belief system, which was Judaism, has always remained the same. The Sephardic Jews took a great part. They weren't exclusive, but they took a very great part in the transatlantic slave trade. Not so much as victims, but as the people who were doing the trading in the first place. This is all historical record. And a lot of these people who are out here trying to teach you something different, they are intentionally leaving that part out. This is all historical record. I have even gone to Sephardi Jews themselves and presented to you their information, their videos, their descendants. They are acknowledging this. So these liars that are out here that are telling you to take pride that somewhere down the line, you are the descendant of a Sephardi Jew. That's part of your history. You want to take pride in that? You want to take pride that one of your descendants wrote a whole entire death curse on black folks, on Negroes. You want to take pride in that? And I would challenge anybody to say that this is wrong. This is the fact. This is the truth. This is right here, right in your face. So this is a Sephardic Jewish person. You got people who have come out with whole documentaries talking about how black folks are not only the true Hebrews, but we were the descendants of the Sephardics. This is what the Sephardics were saying. This is what they thought about black folks. This is what they were saying about you. Okay, so anyway, I mean, I don't know what else I could do. I don't know what else I could do to show people, to get people to read, to pick up a book and read. I don't know. All I could do is show you. But that's the beginning, because I said, I was very curious. I said, let me just back up for a second. Okay, so this was the 12th century. So that was quite a long time ago. And I was like, was there any other historical record during this time or before, prior to Maimonides saying this? Was there any other time, anything recorded that where the people of the South, the Negroes, were described as apes? I looked, y'all, and what I came up with was a big goose egg. Nothing. Nobody. And I'll just read it to you. I have it here on my screen, but I'll just read it to you. And it says, after an exhaustive search across ancient Greek, Roman, Islamic, and medieval texts, including targeted queries on authors like Herodotus, Pliny the Elder, Aristotle, Pseudo-Aristotle, and they name all of these different people here. I found no explicit pre-12th century references directly calling Negroes from the South or sub-Saharan black Africans monkeys or apes. Maimonides' passage in the Guide of the Perplexed, which is written in 1190 AD, appears to be the earliest surviving direct comparison in written records, framing Southern black Africans as occupying a position lower than the rank of man, but higher than the rank of apes. That's what it says. So this whole narrative that we have out here where black people are being compared to apes and monkeys and all of that, primates, that's where it began. This began with Israel, or Jewish, their most esteemed rabbi came up with this. See, my goal here is to get you to start thinking with your analytical mind, because what black people have done up to this point is that we just see things in black and white. That's it. We never look between the lines and see what's really behind that. How many people has even brought this up? And we're going to keep on going here, okay? So I mentioned that he was a Sephardic and all of that. Now, why is this important? Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to hit the fast forward button here a little bit, okay? And we're going to go to a documentary. And I'm just going to play some clips here for you. And the name of this documentary, I've not only mentioned it, but I've also played parts of it before, and thankfully didn't get in any trouble for it, but we're going to continue. We're going to do it again and make sure that we don't get in trouble for it. But what I want you to do is, now that you have that as your backdrop, okay? Because prior to that, there are other examples, because what I mentioned, like Aristotle and some of these other people, there are some descriptions when they were describing people of darker skin that were negative, but it wasn't until Maimonides came into play where he actually he just was like, yes, they are a little bit above the apes, but lower than man. It's a Jewish person that came up with this. Okay. So anyway, so we're going to fast forward and you're going to see this come back in play. And then we're going to get into some deeper stuff here. So this is a documentary and I'm just playing the clips of it. It's called Hollywoodism. And it's talking about the history of Jews in Hollywood. Okay. And it's a very, very, very good documentary. I mean, they did a very good job at it and with it. And so this clip here, I want you to listen to the individuals that are talking. These are Jews now. This ain't me talking. And I want you to listen to how they describe, because there's always this thing like, oh, they control Hollywood. Don't say that and all this other stuff. This is a documentary they did where they're actually taking pride in the fact that yes, they did and do control that whole entire world. All right. So let me see. Once again, let me see if I could pull this thing up and get this thing to work here. Hold on for a second. And I'm going to set the time to 25:06. All right, here we go. 25:06. All right, and let me take that out and put this on. I can't stand this thing. Oh my gosh, I can't stand this thing. All right, let's see. Okay, here we go. So you guys should be able to hear this. And let me go ahead, play, and let's take a listen. It's just a short clip.
The director and the writer and to a certain extent the stars actually made these movies. Those were the real artists, and these guys were only businessmen. I would place the artistic sensibility not with the director, but with the studio head. And for those who say, well, this is ridiculous, I would say, from beginning to end, the executive had the primary input into the picture and supervised every aspect of production, over and above the fact that beyond any individual picture, it was the executive who created the entire studio apparatus. Every producer who worked there, every director who worked there, every writer who worked there, and every star who worked there was part of the larger system that was created by the Hollywood Jews.
I'm not sure that there was an, quote, American dream before the Jews came to Hollywood and invented it. What you had was a westward movement, and you had the idea of freedom, but you didn't have what we have today, which is a popular culture that creates dreams. That's a dream factory.
Hold on. Hold on, y'all. There you go. So that's that clip there. You guys heard that. All right. And then now let's move to 30:04. All right. Let me move to 30:04. Okay, here we go. 30:04. Make sure you guys can see it. Okay, let's play that.
Decent. And although they were of different classes and ethnicities, they were knitted together by a larger, almost spiritual sense of family. The Moguls created the images, the icons, and the visual forms that we identify with the American way of life.
They created their own America, an America which is not the real America. It's their own version of the real America. But ultimately, this shadow America becomes so popular and so widely disseminated that its images and its values come to devour the real America.
Listen.
And so the grand irony of all of Hollywood is that Americans come to define themselves by the shadow America that was created by Eastern European Jewish immigrants who weren't admitted to the precincts of the real America.
Oh, that's out of their mouth. Like I always tell you, what I always tell you, you always go straight to the source. Do I not always tell you that? I always tell you, go straight to the source, let them say it. Because you ain't going to believe me, you might as well go ahead and listen to them, and they're going to tell you. You hear that? You can rewind and play it again. Look, like I said, I got too many buttons here to figure this out. So my advice for you is to go ahead, rewind, and listen to what he said again. You hear that? So anyway, so he's saying that, like, you know, and in the documentary, it goes on and talks about how, you know, they elaborate on that even more, that this whole idea of the American dream and how America is perceived all over the world through the lens of Hollywood was not something that was birthed out of American culture per se, but it actually came from the minds of Eastern European Jews that came over here. Why did they come over here? How did they come over here into Hollywood? Well, that goes to another documentary that they did. I'm not going to play that one here. I actually had to put that on another platform. Numbers of them were fleeing Berlin during this time. They were fleeing Berlin because they had enough. The people in Berlin had enough. They said, we're tired. They got to get up out of here. And what were they doing? Was it just that, oh, they were God's chosen? No. Have you ever seen the old newsreels and the photos when you see the soldiers burning all of those books? You ever see that? Well, we've been taught that basically they were burning books because, you know, they just didn't want people to read anything. No. Look up Mr. Hirschfeld. He had the largest the largest collection of pornography since the Roman Empire. This is the man that actually spearheaded trans operations. He was the first person to do this, trans operations. I've shown you photos. I've shown you books. I've shown you all the information. It's there. And Hirschfeld, he also had a whole museum of porno and all this other crazy stuff that was going on. But it wasn't just Hirschfeld. There was a whole lot of these folks of that same group that was pushing a lot of this stuff. So when the Nazis came around and they were like, okay, enough is enough. I'm not saying, hey, I'm team Nazi now. You ain't gonna see me go off into some Kanye stuff. I ain't doing that. But we're gonna have to tell the whole truth, because the truth about Nazis too, they ain't really went too kind to black people either. Okay, so you ain't gonna miss me with trying to associate me with some Nazi stuff. I ain't definitely with them, because they ain't like black folks either. But when you see those footages of them burning books and stuff, that's what they were burning. They never tell you what they were burning. Okay, so now let's go back here. Okay, so we just saw out of their mouths, they talked about how they are responsible for really laying the groundwork of what we know today as Hollywood, right? Okay, so we accept that. That's fine, no problem. But see, we're historians here, aren't we? And not only are we historians, but we're black historians, which means we remember our history. At least here we do. And one of the things we remember about old Hollywood was that it wasn't too kind when it came to the portrayal of black folks. So if you're going to take credit for laying the foundation of Hollywood, then you must take credit for how black people were portrayed during those times. And we're going to go right to the individuals that played a major part in how black people were portrayed back then. Okay? So let me find that right here, right quick for you. Give me just a moment. That was here. Let's see. I'm just going to give you the list here. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna bring it up on the screen here. Let me bring it up on the screen here. That would be this one. Nope, not that. Let's see. Let me make that small. Make me small again. Here we go. Let's take a look. Now, many of you are very familiar with blackface, right? Blackface actors, you know, you heard of Al Jolson, you know, and some of these other actors, right? You're very familiar with that, right? Okay. Well, it wasn't just Al Jolson. All of these individuals that I'm about to name to you are Jewish individuals. These were actors who portrayed black folks in blackface. Now, you're going to see, this is leading up to something. I thought you were talking about apes. This is all connected, okay? This is all connected. So I'm just going to go down the list. I'm not going to read all of this stuff. It's on the screen. You can look this up yourself, okay? ChatGPT will, in fact, tell you this. I thought I was going to get some problems and jack ChatGPT up for a second, be like, and it tries to soften it a little bit. I'm saying, no. I asked for this, and this is what you're going to tell me. And so anyway, so here are all the Jewish actors that portrayed black folks in blackface. Al Jolson, Eddie Cantor, Sophie Tucker, Fanny Brice, George Jessel, George Burns, Benny Rubin, Sophie Turner. Now we get into the mid-century, times. Neil Diamond, Larry Parks, Icy Dye, Peter Lorre. Now we get into later 20th century, Gene Wilder, Billy Crystal, Howard Stern, Sarah Silverman, Zach Braff, Jack Black, David Baddiel, and then they said, and it goes on, it says it was actually many, many more. Many, many more. So the impact of this, and this is what we're going to get into this in a moment, the impact of portraying black folks as this clownish kind of stuff. This tiny, tiny group that's just looking for a place to live played a significant role in how black folks, black Americans particularly, were depicted. Now, I talked about a while back, a long time ago, I know I talked about the movie, not Planet of the Apes, because we're going to get to Planet of the Apes in a moment, but King Kong. What I don't remember is really going into the details of King Kong. Okay, so we're going to do that right now. One of the things I just learned, and I didn't know, I knew about King Kong, but I didn't know that prior to the thing that inspired King Kong in the first place, there was actually a stage play called Congo. It was a stage play called Congo. Let me, I'll just read to you the description. And I actually found, they did a video, they did a movie for that too. But let me see if I can find where they talked about it, because I was looking for the description of it here. Let me see. Oh, here it is. Here it is. I'm gonna read it to you. Let's see. Because I want to read to you the description of it. Okay. Okay, here it is. Congo was a Broadway play, and this was back in 1926. Congo was a Broadway play and later a film written by Chester Devon and Kilbourne Gordon. It took place in the African Congo and featured a cruel white ivory trader ruling over locals and explorers. The atmosphere, they said it was a dark jungle, brutality, mysticism, captivity, and a civilized versus savage subtext, was a part of the popular pulp culture imagination of the late 1920s. They said Marion C. Cooper, he saw Congo and was struck by its intense jungle imagery and moral contrast, which helped seed ideas for an adventure film built around the wild setting. And do I have the image here? Let me give you here. So let me just, I have it here. That's it right there. You see it right above me? That's the movie. They did the movie for it, but that's, but it started off as a play, and then from a play, it became a movie. And then the guy they just mentioned, he actually was like, that's a great idea. Let me do King Kong. So King Kong was, when you hear Kong, yes, it was referring to Congo. All right. Now, how many of y'all remember for the longest time on this platform, we did an entire series about black folks, many black folks here in the United States, black Americans, when you follow our genetic trail, if you will, when you follow that history, it takes you specifically, because a lot of times they will say, well, we all come from West Africa. That's partially true. Okay, that's partially true. We were embarked in West Africa, but that doesn't mean we were from West Africa. And when they say West Africa, and let me be specific, they typically are saying Ghana, Nigeria, around the Ivory Coast. They're saying that when people say we're come from West Africa, they always point you to those countries. Let me say that again. They will always point you that, yes, you came from these areas right here. You were embarked in those areas. But when you actually take the time, as I did, and you read through how they acquired these slaves in the first place, these Africans as slaves in the first place, many of them came from the interior of the continent of Africa, from central down to the south, not all the way to the tip, like where we call today South Africa, but all down in there. That's Angola, that's Congo, that's all of that area there. That's where many of us, our lineage traces there. And if you've been following this platform, we've actually traced those influences from that part of the continent. You find those influences literally all over the southeastern part of the United States. We've been able to identify different landmarkers. We've been able to identify language. We've been able to identify a bunch of things, cultural practices that only originate from those areas. Okay? So yes, we definitely did our homework on that, and we've taken you through the process and have given you hundreds of books and said, you can go through this yourself and it will show you. Okay, so that's where when these people, when they came out with this plan of the plan, I keep going, I'm jumping ahead of myself. King Kong and all of that, they were doing it because they were addressing they were talking about a very specific group of people, and that's us. That's black people here in the United States. And they wanted to make sure that every thought that we had of our place of origin was something that we would mock. And in 2025, that's what's happening today. You got black folks all on social media today. I ain't from there. I ain't from no Africa. We ain't got nothing to do with Africa. We ain't got nothing. I'm all 100% Indian, and we came from here because my grandmother said. And they want to be space aliens. They want to be from Atlantis. They want to be from the planet Mars. They want to be from every other place. They want to be Riddick, Riddick, the movie. They want to be from his planet. They want to be a part of any other place in the galaxy except Africa. But once you look at language, once you look at cultural practices, we've even looked down, to the food. We looked at our food and what inspired our foods and stuff. We've looked at all of that. It's all on our platform right here. And it traces all in that area. So what these people did is they wanted to make sure that any thought we had in reflection of that place, it was always going to look something like crazy, demonic, and the only way that we can be tamed or controlled is by some white man coming in to save us. And the second thing they did was that they put in they put in our minds how to have a high value of white women, We're going to get to that too. We did a video on that. The video is called Liquor, White Women, and the Black Man or something like that. I think it's called Black Men, Liquor, and the White Woman or something like that. We're going to get into that in this broadcast here. So that's what they wanted to put in your minds. All right. So anyway, so Hollywood, who controlled Hollywood? There we go. We already talked about that. So they had in this movie, King Kong, they had black folks who were later going to be caught up in the transatlantic slave trade, you know, well, we were and all of that, but black folks who were worshiping a big old gorilla. Now, if you take the time and actually go through history, if you ever, looked at, African spirituality, I have yet to come across anyone in Africa worshiping a gorilla. I don't think I've ever seen that. But this was a Hollywood thing that they came up with. And in Hollywood, what did they do? They wanted to portray us, what was the whole storyline of King Kong? You had this big old gorilla, right? And he just gonna go off on anybody. He just gonna go off on anybody. He just big brute. And he just gonna go off or whatever. And then all of a sudden, what happens? They bring in the white woman. Oh, then this big old ape, this gorilla about as big as a building. All of a sudden, he just lost for words. He can't do anything. It's like he done just discovered something. It's like he done discovered something that, oh my gosh, this is greater than a whole orchard of bananas. This is something, oh my God, what did I come across? Well, now let me jump to the video that I was referring to, the Liquor, the White Women, and Black Man video. Let me talk about that briefly, and then I'm gonna come back to it again. In Atlanta, and I should just read it to you. How about I do that? That would be here. Let me just see. Okay, so I'm going to tell you, and then I'll read what they brought up. In Atlanta, there was, and this is going back in the early 1900s, late 1800s, so, during that time, right? Atlanta, if you didn't know, just like a lot of other major cities, had a significant Jewish population. But you didn't know that. Again, we've been trained to see everything in white and black, but we don't ever talk about them, do we? Okay, so anyway, because Jews were being marginalized, like they were being marginalized in a lot of areas during that time, they were left with only certain areas or certain communities where they could operate and do their thing, right? And there were certain industries that they worked in. And one of the industries that they worked in was in alcohol, and particularly liquor, when, taking alcohol and adding a significant sugar content to it. All right. And what they would do, and that's why I said I would encourage you to do this, because many of them was in that part of the industry. What they did was that they would add a significant sugar content to this alcohol, and they would put it in bottles, but not just any bottles. I want you to pay attention to what I'm saying here. They would shape the bottle in the shape of a woman. And not only, it wasn't just any woman. They would shape it in the shape of a white woman. If the bottle wasn't shaped as a woman, then in other cases, they would put a picture of a white woman in front of it on the label. Now we're getting into alchemy. Okay, now we're getting into alchemy now. I'm not making any of this up. And like I said again, I encourage you to go back and look at that video, because like I said, I don't have time to go in all the details of that. I encourage you to do it, okay? Because everything I'm saying is fully backed and fully sourced. And so what they would do is that they would take those bottles And they would market specifically to households, black households all across the South, specifically black households. Okay, I hope you're listening to me. And so, not only that, now let me read to you this right here. Okay, because I covered this as well in their book. And I was getting all of this. They write all this stuff. I'm talking about these Jewish folk. They put all of this in their own books. So you can't get mad at me. Y'all documented this stuff. Okay, so let me read to you what was going on in Atlanta. Decatur Street and the Vice District. Decatur Street and the nearby Slabtown areas became Atlanta's main red light entertainment district in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Full of saloons, brothels, gambling spots, etc., right next to areas where many black Atlanteans lived and worked. One write-up on Decatur Street notes that Eastern European Jewish immigrants were among the main owners of saloons there, alongside other white proprietors. These saloons were exactly the kind of places where classes and races mixed in ways that freaked out white elites. A very specific stat, a historical note about a saloon called A. Abelski's on Decatur Street mentions that in 1905, 25 Jewish immigrants ran or worked in Decatur Street saloons, and Jewish immigrants made up about half of the saloon keepers on that street. And I'm reading what ChatGPT gave me. That's a huge number for a small minority community, and it lines up with what you remember reading. Because I said, hey, I remember reading this somewhere. Yeah, I was just saying that. I said, tell me more. And that's why it's saying that. Jewish saloon owners were disproportionately to their share of the population. And it wasn't just there. They were also in other areas. Okay, so it says, I'll just jump here. They said new Jewish immigrants often ended up in the liquor business as distillers, bartenders, and especially small saloon owners. In some southern cities, white journalists railed against the colored-only saloons ran by Jews, describing them as places where black patrons drank, gambled, and watched erotic images, and using that to attack both groups at once. I talked about all of this in the video. I hope you're paying attention to what I'm saying. I hope you're paying attention. And in that video, I also talked about, because they write this out in detail, in those saloons, they would have pictures, tall pictures of naked white women all over the place in these saloons. And what would happen is they would, so you had black folks coming up in there. The Jews are giving them liquoring them up, giving them this alcohol with this sugar content. Why are you putting sugar in it? Because it's addictive. Getting black folks addicted to this sugar and this alcohol. Keep giving them to black folks, And while you're in this intoxicated state, what are you imagining? Are you imagining that beautiful black woman you got at home? No, you're looking right at what they want you to focus on, and that is white women. Oh, we're going in history today. Someone said, I'm looking at the chat here. They said, why white women and not black women or Latinos? Because they didn't want that. And you didn't have a significant Latina population in those days in cities like that anyway. So when you get black folks intoxicated like this, what happens? You end up in some pretty bad stuff, don't you? Sometimes you become over aggressive. Sometimes you become overly sexualized. It goes all the way back to what Maimonides was saying in his write-up. It goes all the way back to that. So don't ever listen to anyone and tell you that this is how black people we're just like this because that's just how black people act. There's a history behind it. You need to know the history. Let's continue. We're going to go back to Hollywood. We're still on this ape thing. We talked about King Kong. Now we're going to talk about Planet of the Apes. Now, Planet of the Apes, again, now so far in the King Kong, that was written by individuals. They were not Jewish. However, who greenlit their projects and promoted it and pushed it in mass was the people who controlled Hollywood. And we just, based on what they're saying, they were controlling it. Okay. So they saw it and was like, oh, snap. This falls in line with what we believe about these people anyway. Let's put some money on this and let's go. Now we're going to get into Planet of the Apes. I've talked about this before. We could talk about it again. Planet of the Apes. I would encourage you. I would really encourage you. If you don't have that entire collection of Planet of the Apes, I would encourage you to get it. I would. I really would. Just from a historical perspective, just something to have, a receipt, just something to have. Now, I don't have time to really go through all the details of Planet of the Apes, the different details on it, but I will highlight some things about that series. Now, this series, just like King Kong, the same thing. It was something that the writers themselves, they didn't, they weren't Jewish. However, the system, the Hollywood system, was the one that funded it, greenlit it, and promoted it. Why? Because it was in line with what they believed about black folks. So much so, when you look at the movie Planet of the Apes, you're going to see a lot of interesting themes. This book was actually written, I think, in the 60s. Well, what else was going on during the 60s? What else was going on during the 60s? It was the Civil Rights Movement. The Civil Rights Movement was going on in the 60s. So when you watch the Planet of the Apes series, you are going to see a lot of echoes, if you will, to the Civil Rights Movement. A lot of echoes. Let me see if I can find something, because I wanted to, but there are a lot of scenes in this movie where they were calling out. I mean, it was just too obvious. I was like, okay, y'all, this is too much. Let me see if I can find that. Let's see. If I can't find it, I'll just tell you what I know. Let's see. Where was that? Where did I put that? Hold on. Give me just a moment here. Oh, it might be here. It might be here. I think this is it. Planet of the Apes. Okay, here we go. This is right in front of me. Okay, Planet of the Apes. We'll just start with that. That came out in 1968. The power dynamic between the dominant apes and the subjugated humans mirrored the racial inversion of American society, where whites were now the powerless position. They were playing around with stuff. So the white people, the few of them, Taylor in that movie that was played by Charlton Heston, and then the other one that almost made it and all of that, they were seen as the black people, so to speak, in the movie, kind of, sort of, right? Because they were doing a role reversal. They were seen as the black people, but also the apes were perceived as the black people as well. Because the whole Planet of the Apes series is about what if black people were to take over the world. That's what the entire series is about. What if black people were to take over the world? And the reason why they were this was kind of like their way of, we're trying to educate white people in understanding the plight of black people. So what they did was that's why they had in the Planet of the Apes, again, it was mainly Taylor that was the main white character, played by Charlton Heston. And then later, in later installments, they had other white people as well. they were trying to lecture white America and saying, see what you drove these apes to do. We were the apes in Planet of the Apes. Now, in the movie, was it Conquest of them? Because you had Planet of the Apes, you had Beneath the Planet of the Apes. That's my personal favorite, and it's because it's, I don't know, it's 70s cinema, so there's certain things in it I like, but a whole time I know what they're talking about. Then you had Escape from the Planet of the Apes, where you had Zira and Cornelius. They were the intelligent apes who arrived in the 1970s Los Angeles, became celebrities turned fugitives, echoing how black leaders like the Panthers were initially celebrated, then vilified and hunted. This whole series was portraying black people as apes. And then they said the government's attempt to erase the bloodline, because in the movie, if you remember the movie, they were trying to, Zira found out she was pregnant, and the government was trying to go after them and all that and try to get rid of the baby and all that stuff. And so they say here, the government's attempt to erase their bloodline through the unborn baby, Caesar, reflects fears of black population growth and eugenics era thinking. All right, then you get to Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. Now that one is that one is really like that. You can't get any more like in your face than that one, because there was a scene where it starts off where all of these apes are enslaved. Basically, they're in a society where white people are running stuff, and the apes, they're the subjugated. They're the ones that are like the slaves, right? And so the white people that are running is mostly white people, but you also got like some black people who are of the human class, so to speak. And there was a scene in there, because every now and then Caesar, who had grown up from the other movie, Caesar had grown up, but he started noticing some things. He was like, hold on, man. Hold on for a second. This ain't right how they treating us. How they treating us, man. This ain't right. They shouldn't be treating us like this, man. How dare they do this stuff, right? And so in that movie, they had a black guy who was part of the system. He was conflicted, because on one hand, he was like, I'm doing my job. But on the other hand, he was like, this ain't right. They shouldn't be treating these apes like this. So Caesar saw that, he took it, he was, and so they formed somewhat of a minor friendship or relationship, whatever you want to call it. And there was a scene in there where the black man and Caesar, they're talking. Again, Caesar is an ape. And the Caesar, he goes like this. He's like, I'm sorry, the black guy, he's like, so you guys are just going to just keep revolting over and over again? He was like, yes. He said, even if it means you die, yeah, some will. And then Caesar, who's the ape, says to the black man, he says this, I wish I could play the clip, but they did a whole whatever. They didn't give me a strike, but it was whatever it's called. And so, yeah, I couldn't play it. But Caesar looks at the black man in this movie and he says, you, out of all people, should understand our plight. I'm not playing. You got to go see the movie, y'all. You can find it online. He looked at the black man and did a mic drop, because when he said that, the black man was like, oh, snap. Ooh. He looked at the black man and said, you, out of all people, should understand. And he was like, we can't be free unless we have power. He was giving them a whole Malcolm X speech. They had guerrilla, Jewish-controlled Hollywood had a monkey lecturing a black man on how to fight for civil rights. Maimonides, remember him? Maimonides, all the way back then. We still dealing with Maimonides. So you saw this in Hollywood. And so this whole thing and how it just perpetuated, associating black people with apes. And, again, what's an ape? What's a gorilla, right? They see apes and gorillas, primates, basically, of having this strength, but at the same time, they can, given the right stuff, they can be controlled. And this is what you're seeing today. One of the things about portraying us as on animalistic or on an animal level is that we can take a lot. We could take a lot of stuff. We could take a beating and keep on ticking. We're built for this. You know how a lot of times black people say this stuff? We're built for this. Yeah, I could take it. I could take this. That's why they got us here, because we're the strongest and all of that. That is a very animalistic way of thinking of yourself. Let me say that again, because we're breaking stuff today, okay? That is a very animalistic way of seeing yourself. The human body, period, regardless of where you come from, we can only take but so much, okay? I don't care if you're white, I don't care if you're Asian, I don't care if you're Hispanic, I don't care what you are. If you are a human being, there are limitations to things that you can take. And when we listen to a lot of these sisters out here, and it's brothers too, but I'm gonna talk about these sisters right now, who believe that it's in you to raise an entire family, to be the mother, to be the father, to be everything else, all at the same time while trying to maintain your own life. And you got feminism that's telling you that, yes, you are built for this. That is animalistic. And it comes from this. It goes all the way back to Maimonides. You're not built for that. Same thing for you, brothers. No, we may be, you know why you got so many black folks that are in athletics right now? It's a mockery. Look at all them gorillas on the field. We control them. Just give them just enough. And we control them. You ever checked out who the owners are and the percentage of the owners? You want to know why? It's not by accident, y'all. That's exactly how they see you. Let's throw them some white women up there. Let's throw them some money or whatever. Money's nothing. We got all of that. And it's a celebration of how much they control you. While we sit back, hey, yeah, did you see that move? Oh, hey, he's going in beast mode. He's going in beast mode. He's going in beast mode. I wonder where that came from. And we take great pride in that, don't we? We take great pride in that. Taking beatings like that. Being sold on auction blocks in 2025. What team you're going to go to. It's all connected. It's all connected. You better start waking up. You better start waking up. And so it's this mindset when you get into science and medicine as well. This is why many of these people, remember, Maimonides, he mentioned, are physicians. Remember, he said that. This is why in science and in the fields of science and medicine, this is why they thought of us as the most qualified to be tested on, experimented on over and over again. Why? Because the prevailing thought was that the black body can take all of it. So let's keep injecting them. Oh, they could take it. I know they're screaming and hollering, but they could take it. Let's cut them open. They could take it. Let's see if this fits up in the woman here. Let's put that in here. Let's put this in here because they could take it. All that screaming and hollering, don't worry about it. It's our white women can't take that stuff, but the black body can take it. And we've taken that ideology and we personalize it and say, yeah, we can take it. That's what we say today. We're built for pain. I wasn't built for pain. I don't know about you, but I wasn't built for that. Now, my body has things in it to manage that stuff, right? As long as I'm doing the right things. But my body does not wake up in the morning like, okay, what pain am I going to deal with today? I don't think that way. Now, you may think that way. I don't think that way. That's a very unhealthy way of thinking. But again, I want to reiterate again, when you see yourself and take great pride in the fact that you could take a lot of beating, when you take pride in that and that you could take a lot of beating, you could take more than the average person. When you take pride in that, that is a very animalistic way of thinking because you weren't built for that. And it comes from this demonic rabbi that said what he said. And that leads us to religion, the same thing. When we go back, when we look at religion, when we look at how, we talked about Christianity, anything that's tied to the Bible rests on the shoulders of Judaism. You cannot separate that. There's no argument that you can present that will separate the two. You cannot. It rests on the shoulders of Judaism, the exact same religion that Maimonides practiced. That's where it comes from. It is not the black man's history book. It's not that. It is not. Yes, I used to say that as well, but I began to look into things a little bit closer and I began to ask a lot more questions. And I began to do that. Don't you know this whole Maimonides quote? I just want to pause here for a second. We're almost finished here. This Maimonides quote is really funny because on Twitter, right now, what's going on is a lot of people are waking up to the Talmud and the contents of it. And you got Christians who are bringing up the whole thing about where they say Jesus is boiling in a, a pool of basically mess, human waste. And that's what it says. And it talks about that in the Talmud, right? And of course, the people who are in Judaism, they, just like everything else, they'll tell you, well, it says that, but you see, they were just thinking out loud. But if you go to this other passage, they're actually saying a reverse. And, I heard one guy, actually trying to make it seem like he wasn't talking about Jesus. He was talking about someone else named Jesu. And, these people are making all kinds of stuff up because now people are starting to wake up and they're like, wait a minute, let's read the fine print into all this stuff. Right. And so, so they got that whole thing about Jesus and the whole thing and all of that. And what I keep doing now, some of these people are actual rabbis. Okay. They ain't got too much of a following. And I'm going right to these folks and I'm saying, oh yeah, well, okay. You got an explanation for that. Do you have an explanation for Maimonides? Was he misquoted here? Was he out of line? Was he maybe talking about someone else figuratively? Or maybe there's another verse where he's saying the direct opposite and how much he loves the black people from the South, the Negroes. Is there something about that? And in every instance that I have posted that, I have gotten not one acknowledgement. And I know people are saying it because I'm seeing the analytics of it. 100 people plus that are seeing what I'm posting, but they ain't, not one of them will address that. Why? Because black folks don't count in the matrix. Black folks are the muscle. You are seen as the muscle. That's how they see you. The question is, how do you see yourself? That's what it comes down to. How do you see yourself? And so when you see, for example, IUIC marching up down the street in their purple and all that other stuff, and people are like, hey, yeah, that's what we're talking about. IUIC, just like a lot of these Hebrews that are on the street, they are the muscle for street Judaism. They are the muscle for street Judaism. They are there to remind people that at the end of the day, this is what fuels the matrix system that we live in today, is Judaism. And all they're simply doing is repeating what's been put in that book. And they are reminding people of that over and over again, that yes, you are under the power of these folks. That's really what they're saying, because they have no power other than to march up and down the street. They have no other power but to scream and holler at you and to demand that you follow the law, statutes, and commandments. The very thing that practitioners of Judaism say that one day what's going to happen is that the entire world is going to bow down at the feet of those that practice Judaism. That's what they say. I could play for you a clip right now where over and over they're saying it. Rabbi after rabbi after rabbi after rabbi after rabbi. That's what they're saying. This is what they teach. That's not me saying it. That's what they're teaching. So when you got black folks, big, bulky black men going down the street in their purple shirts, going around telling people, yeah, you know, because the law, statute, all that stuff, but you don't have any power. You ain't building anything. You're not issuing out loans. You don't have any banks. You don't building schools, food supplies, houses. You're not doing any of that. The only power you have is the ability to scream. This woman that comes on. She has her YouTube channel. I can't even mention her name because I can't recall it right now, but she comes on my timeline sometime, and she's just known to be doing the whole finger wagging and neck broke and going all this stuff to see we're the real people and, you know, all of this stuff. But that's all you got. That's all you got. And black folks, we get all excited about that. But after you click off the video, you ain't got no power. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So this is what they promote. This is what they see. So we're concluding here. Maimonides, he put out this whole oracle, if you will, that when it comes to the people, the Negroes of the South, these black folks that are called the Negroes, what he said is what he said as far as how we are portrayed as basically over-sexualized. You know, we're right above the area, the level of an ape and gorilla and all that other stuff, right? But we're lower than that of a man. And you can look through all of history and you can see how this system was very intentional in making sure that you carry that out psychologically, how you handle things socially. Everything is the tyranny of the urgent, and that's how you think, and that's how you're very aggressive, the whole nine. Some of y'all ain't gonna really get what I'm saying. Some of y'all, it may take some time. It may take years for you to understand and to really grip what I've talked about in this video. Some of y'all get it. Some of y'all get it now. But unfortunately, I know that for some people, it's a bit difficult. It's a bit challenging because the last thing, not even the last thing you should want to do is to be in any way, shape or form, tied in, bound in with people who see you like that. That includes religion. You should want to have nothing to do with anything that they have served to you, starting with religion. You should want to have nothing to do with that because when you are engaged and you have embraced their religion, when you've embraced that, what happens is you are falling in line with the pawns that they got lined up. That's exactly what you're doing. I'm looking right now. I'm just looking at, take a look at the comments here and see what I'll look at the comments in a moment here, but that's what you're doing. You are actually taking part in their belief system about you. This is why they have you singing in 2025, "We shall overcome someday." That's why they have you singing that. We're the only group of people today in 2025 talking about we shall overcome someday. We're the only group of people that talk like that. Meanwhile, people are doing things left and right. I was so happy. I'll do that in another broadcast. But it was a black woman who I came across on YouTube, and she talked about how she was laid off because of AI and all that stuff. And she said, you know what? I figured something out. And then she went on ChatGPT and figured out, built her own business. And she's, from what it sounds like, she's doing quite well. So what I'm saying to you is this, black man, black woman, what I want to say to you is this, and I want to definitely get to your comments. So load up the comment section, the chat section. If you put whatever you want in there, and then we're going to have a time when we go through the chat. Okay. So just go ahead while I'm talking here. But I want to just leave this to you and then I'm done. Listen, despite on everything I've said, you are not bound to that. You're not. You are not bound to that. The one thing they may have created the system, they may have created the matrix system, but they did not create this world that's around us. I'm looking out my window right now. I see beautiful trees. I see beautiful grass. I see a beautiful sky. I see clouds that look kind of streaked because they putting all that stuff up there and all of that. I still see a peak of a sun. They didn't create that. And you are all connected to all that. And at nighttime, I'm looking at the stars. They didn't create that. You are greater than what they have defined you as. So even though they may tell you that, you don't have to buy into it. You are greater than that. Do you hear what I'm saying to you? You are greater than that. You are not cursed. You are not, and I'm going to get some of y'all on this. I'm going to get y'all on some of this. It's going to hurt. I know this is going to hurt. I know it's going to hurt. But I have to tell you, I must tell you, you were not born into sin. Did you hear me? You were not born into sin. You were not born. How can on one hand, everything he created was good, but then you flip back and say, because of what one person did, now everybody is born, you on your way to hell. So nature put all of this work in creating you only for you to be on a fast track to hell unless you bow down to a Jewish Lord and Savior. You see how they flip? You see how that goes? See, you got to catch up. You got to catch up. You got to catch up. The only way of your salvation is that you're going to have to bow down to him. Because other than that, you're born into sin. You're a sinner. No, my body, the way my physiology and the real me that's inside of here is a beautiful thing. And the same thing for you. That life force that's inside of you is the same thing that makes these beautiful trees, that makes that beautiful sky, makes those stars, makes all of that stuff. It's in you. And if you born into sin, so is that squirrel out there too. It must be born into sin. Notice they don't say animals are born into sin. Only you born into sin. What happens to the animals? They go to hell too? Is there a squirrel hell that they go to? Are there butterflies? They go to the lake of fire? Huh? Elephants, they in the lake of fire. Lions and bears and stuff, they in the lake of fire because they were born into sin too. Everything's sinful. No, you are not disabled. You are not a disabled creature. You have been fully enabled. Just like any other seed, when a seed is born, it has everything it needs to be whatever it's supposed to be. Not everybody's supposed to be a billionaire. Not everybody's supposed to be a millionaire, but you are supposed to do exactly what's inside of you. And the beautiful thing about it is that all of us have something unique that we can bring up that nobody else can. The lie of this matrix system is to put you in a whole category. That's the demonic thing about this whole DEI thing, is to sweep all these special groups into a category where you are disabled and the only help that you need to get is from the government. And so we're going to put you poor blacks, monkeys, and black folks with the homosexuals. We're going to put you with the men that want to dress up like women. And we're going to put you with those that that love little children and all of that. We're going to put you black folks all in that same category so that the government can help you get your education and the government can help you get a job and the government can help you. You don't need any of that. You don't need any of that. That's what they want you to believe, that you were born disabled. You are not a disabled creature. You are not that. And part of what's disabling you now is religion. It is. Because religion would tell you that you can never be at your full potential unless you bow down to their God. So what is it? So you're going to have to, so there's some decisions you're going to have to make. There's some things you're going to have to think about. There's some things you're going to have to think through and understand this matrix system that we're in and what it was specifically for black folks. It was the role that it assigned specifically for black folks. And I say starting with black Americans only because what Maimonides, he was saying, he was talking about those Negroes of the South. He was talking about those Africans, but those eventually found their way in the transatlantic slave trade or in the Arab slave trade. So that's who he's talking about. This is why, you know, you got people from Somalia or Ethiopia. I see a lot of you black folks says, yeah, you know, because the first Bible actually came from Ethiopia, which it didn't. But you take, yeah, you know, the Ethiopians don't even have like you. They will make it very clear. Oh, no, we're not them. But we so want that. No. You hear me? I want you to hear what I'm saying. What's in you individually is something very great. It's something very powerful. This matrix system is afraid of it. That's why they wanted to put these roles out for black folks and say, oh, you just that and you just nothing. That's why they wanted to do. There was something they had to do to get you thinking as if you're disabled. They had to do this. And what I'm saying, it's time for you to rise up. It's time for you to wake up. Let me just say this, and then I'm going to get to your comments here. I was going to say this too. When you look at math, for example, black folks, you know, we've talked about this when it comes to math in this country or, you know, most other countries. Unfortunately, we rank pretty low when it comes to mathematics, right? However, that does not mean that's mathematics the way they teach it. When you go back into African history, when you go back, we've talked about this as well, going back to Adam's, what's called Adam's calendar and all this other stuff, the way villages were laid out and stuff. They still are learning. How in the world did these people learn how to do this mathematics stuff, how they laid this stuff out, how they got things laid out to star patterns and all this other stuff. See, math for us was different back then. See, math wasn't like getting, okay, if you got a train coming on this track and a train coming on this same track, we ain't thinking about that. It's all you guys, because all y'all were doing mud huts and stuff. That's it. No, it was more than that. Math was something that we embodied that. We understood the symbiotic relationship with nature. We understood the symbiotic relationship with the sky, the stars, with animals. We understood all of that. So math was something that was part of us. We didn't call it math, but it was something we breathed and learned. However, when you're brought into this situation where this is how we're going to teach you trigonometry. And we're like, what? So it's not that you just don't have the brain to understand math. It's just how it's being taught. You understand? So no, you are not a disabled individual. You're not. You're not a gorilla, you're not an ape and all of that stuff. And they have their own intelligence as well, because we're not going to piss on these animals either, because they all have their intelligence and we respect them and love them and take care of them and all of that. But we are greater than that. We are. And we all share a symbiotic relationship together. That's how we do. So, okay, so let's get to your, someone mentioned the Congo cosmogram. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot just behind that. Let me get to some of your comments here, and let me see which anyone's got anything to add here. And like I said, I do apologize for my tardiness and starting. It's just this new program. I just don't like it at all. So hopefully I'll get that resolved. Let's see. So see if I can make this bigger here. This is K. Sandra Nova. Hope I'm saying that right. Said today while I was waiting on the J train in Brooklyn, this younger smallhead asked if I knew an honest woman like myself to help him as a personal assistant in grocery shops. I told him nope. You know what that reminded me of? Will you be my maid? For Color Purple. No, I don't know anybody. Keep it moving. Ask one of your women. Anyway, let me see if anybody's got anything else here. If anybody's got anything else, well, otherwise you can just leave a comment. I'm sorry, yeah, in the comment section later on. I know this was a lot, but just go through it. I think I covered everything I needed to cover in this broadcast here. But yeah, I know it's a lot, and then I know it's a lot of process. But I want you to really take the time and think about it, go through it, all of that stuff. And I think other than that, that's it. If y'all don't have anything else, so I think that's it. That's all for now. And I hope you guys got something out of this. Remember, we are doing that up to 30% off promo over on sambatree.com, right? But that's still going on. And we are running a promo on our seasonings for 24 hours, 40% off. 24 hours, 40% off. The bladderwrack is, I think she has that at 18%. Okay. So yeah, so you could check that out over on sambatree.com. Let me see. Someone left a comment here. They said, I want to add, brother, do you think that those who are in the ancestral beliefs, do you think they should be in there? I don't know what you mean. Let me see this next one here. Did you, I get it. So brother, if I'm gentle and meek, I am breaking the mental stronghold. Okay, I'm gonna have to process that a little bit more. Okay, because like you was talking to someone else, but that's all. It's all good. I do apologize. So, all right. So that's it. That is all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. You guys take care, and we'll be talking again soon. Take care now.